Welcome to this. We did have some technical issues there. As I was saying before, my name is George Welch, current president of the RMT. Welcome to the launch of this very important campaign, Better Jobs, Better Services, End Real Outsourcing. And here to tell us more about that is our General Secretary, Eddie Dempsey.
Good evening. Better Jobs, Better Services is RMT's campaign to make the Labour government's pledge for the biggest wave of insourcing in a generation a reality for RMT members. The government has said that it wants to create an integrated public railway owned by the public that cuts out wasteful profiteering and interface costs, and one in which workers are proud to work for Great British Railways and are viewed as an asset and not a cost. We wholeheartedly agree with this vision, but it cannot mean leaving out the tens of thousands of essential key workers who kept the railways going during the COVID crisis. These workers right across our railway include cleaners, gate line workers, revenue protection staff, security staff, catering, infrastructure maintenance and renewals workers, and infrastructure engineers. The employers are familiar names, from facilities management companies like Mighty, OCS, Churchill's and ABM. In catering, the employers most often SSP, Rail Gourmet or Gate Gourmet. In infrastructure, employment tends to be on precarious 0 hours contracts or on bogus self-employment arrangements or agency work provided by labour supply companies like Mawsons and Clichards, or engage in rail infrastructure subsidies of construction companies like Balfour Beatty. We're going to hear this evening from one of our outsourced worker activists shortly, but the raw facts are pretty stark. These companies make their profits out of keeping workers on low pay, inferior or casual contracts, leaving these workers struggling to get pay that can meet their monthly bills and worrying about whether they have any pensionable arrangements for their retirement. If you're one of the infrastructure workers engaged on 0 hours contracts by a subcontractor paid by Network Rail, your life will be dominated by the pressure to get the next shift and to make sure that you can pay your bills from month to month. And as our research published on Tuesday shows, if you're a BAME worker, you're much more likely to be outsourced. If you're a government aiming to improve the working life of working people or deliver the biggest wave of insourcing for a generation, these statistics should worry you. As it comes together in the next few years, Great British Railway is going to inherit scores, if not hundreds, of these contracts. That means the railway will continue to be cut through with a maze of wasteful and inflexible contracts, duplicate management that generate extra costs and inefficiency and lead hundreds of millions in profits to shareholders, consultants and lawyers. Our analysis demonstrates in the region of 400 million a year is being lost to profiteering through our outsourcing and subcontracting. For scale, that's the equivalent of a 3.8% annual fare cut, and it's money that is not being invested in our transport system. Returning contracts outsourced by the train operating companies and Network Rail to the direct control in the GBR would allow these profits to be reinvested in the railway, and that would make it easier to recruit and train these workers, providing them with decent jobs that improve productivity on the railway, which means better services for the travelling public. We understand it's difficult to reverse 30 years of privatisation, and we know that this is a process of rebuilding, but it's a process that's already begun. Network Rail have done it in the past, and they know the benefits of insourcing safety critical workers, as they said in their response to our new report. But it's also worth noting that that hasn't stopped them subcontracting renewals work or outsourcing safety critical maintenance work just in the last few years. We know it works in other areas too. In Transport for Wales, they've insourced their cleaning. Northern Rail's train cleaners are also in-house, and we've had positive discussions so far with the Mayor of London about insourcing 2,000 underground cleaners. We know we can't let the pressure up here because we know his employers at TfL, they don't want to do it. So what we're calling for isn't radical, it's urgent, and our members won't wait. We've started this campaign, and we're going to keep going for as long as it takes to make that wave of insourcing a reality. in railways and across the country and help us to build an integrated workforce. One railway, one workforce. Thanks, President.
Thank you, Eddie. The next speaker is Bella Fashula, who is President of the National Industrial Organising Conference of Cleaning Grids and is herself an outsourced worker. She's going to talk to us about the experience of outsourced workers from the front line and explain the difference that insourcing will make to members and thousands of outsourced workers on our railways. Bella, thank you.
Thank you, President. I've been an outsourced worker for 8 years and I've seen the decline in the trains that I clean as a train cleaner, the standard for the members of the public, and that's all because of profit wants to be made by companies in the railway taking out and taking off of us, the workers. We shouldn't have to go on where we're forced onto the bare minimum. The members of the public shouldn't have to get on a train to pay a full fare when the train's not been fully serviced. So that's why this campaign, Better Jobs, Better Services, really is going to hit home. And it's going to take support from everybody, the members in the unions, members in other unions, and the members of the public themselves. Why should we allow profiteers to take the money out of the railway and it goes straight into their pockets, whilst workers are left, some of them cleaning 5 trains an hour, some of them cleaning 10. And every single time these contracts get awarded, every single 5 years, we have less and less and less of a workforce, less equipment to do the job. Some people are buying their own equipment and bringing it into work because they can't not do the job. We want to feel proud in our jobs. Everybody wants to go to work and do a good job, but we're not able to because the money is being stripped back, the workforce is being stripped back, and there's no tools to continue. We, the workforce, will stand up and we will stand together and we will win this fight to be brought back in-house, and we need to in-source now.
Thank you, Bella. Our next speaker is Ellie Baker. Ellie is Labour member of the London Assembly, chair of the GLA's Transport Committee, Labour spokesperson on transport, and a friend to the rail unions, who has given her full support to the RMT throughout its long campaign around the cleaners who are outsourced to ABM on London Underground. Ellie, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Ellie Baker. I'm a London-wide Labour Assembly member and I was elected in 2021. But as a former railway trade union officer, I'm proud to have been working with the RMT for about 20 years now, and I'm really pleased to be on this panel and to fully support this campaign. And our support in the Labour group for the RMT campaign to insource the 2,000 London Underground cleaners currently employed by ABM, this goes back far further than my election. We've been pushing for some time, raising it with the Mayor of London and working with RMT to put pressure on Transport for London. This group of workers, low paid, with poor sick pay and no prospect of a decent pension, they deserve better. They're keeping our vital public transport services running. We saw this during COVID as they were ensuring key workers were able to get to work. Yet somehow this has been forgotten when it comes to showing them the respect of treating them like their other colleagues on the network. The Mayor has been positive about the principle and has previously made Transport for London review the outsourced contract, but we need to actually make it happen. We know there's a financial impact, but we cannot allow the budgets of our transport network to be balanced on the back of those least likely to be able to afford it. So it's a continuing shame that these workers are not yet back employed by Transport for London. And as the contract comes to an end yet again, we should not be looking at another tender. These workers must be brought in-house and have the benefits that other tube workers have. It's hardly a radical move. London Underground had to bring in-house thousands of infrastructure workers after the failure of tube lines and Metronet. And as has been said, it's happened on the wider railway as well. So it can be done, and we know it works. It's worked for years now. And the railway and the wider transport network, it should represent good, well-paid, safe and stable jobs with the prospect of career progression. That's what the railway used to stand for. And we shouldn't let anyone tell us that it's not possible. It's absolutely possible if the will is there. And now more than ever, people need safe and secure jobs. We have positive words from the Labour government about the need for good work. And here is the opportunity to act. Let's make insourcing a fundamental part of our new railway structure. Let's make work pay for the cleaners on the tube and for everyone who ensures our public transport network works and our people get around to work, to their family, to their friends and for their social life. We don't need outsourcing companies on the railway. They are the legacy of a failed generation of fragmentation and of political decisions which prioritised access for business into new markets over workers. We must be clear, it's time to leave that behind. And finally, we need strong collective rights in the workplace and strong unions organising workers. Outsourcing is just another way of divide and rule, of keeping wages low and conditions worse. And if this Labour government is serious about supporting good jobs, then we need them to support collective union organising, making the railway a workplace where we've done away with two-tier workforces. That would be a really strong message to send to employers across the country. So solidarity with RMT members and reps campaigning so hard on this issue, and we stand with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Just while we wait for our next guest, just to the General Secretary, what would you say to anybody who is watching this tonight, who is not currently a member of the RMT and is thinking about joining our union?
Well, I'm hopeful that we have got people joining us tonight who've not yet joined, and I've been told particularly there's some people who will be joining us from Marylebone who are worried about joining the union in case they come under pressure from their employer. And I'd just like to say to you, look, we've been campaigning for a publicly owned railway for 30 years. It's taken a long time, but we've won the argument, and now we're seeing the process of rebuilding our railway. We're going to be campaigning long and hard to see workers who are currently outsourced brought into direct employment. So join the union and join the campaign. We'll look after you in the workplace, of course, and we'll negotiate for your pay and fight for your working conditions. But join this campaign because with a massive wave of insourcing across the railway network, we will see the terms, conditions and daily lives of ordinary workers drastically improved right across Britain.
Thank you, Eddie. I'm now going to take a short video from a member of the RMT parliamentary group, Bel Ribeiro Adi, MP, is joining us on this video.
Lisa, I can't be with you in person today, but I wanted to share a message of solidarity and support for the campaign. Across our public services, outsourcing is a complete rip-off. Money that should be going into essential public services, utilities and infrastructure, like rail, is instead lining the pockets of shareholders and company fat cats. The cost of subsidising shareholders alone would be enough of a reason for taking these services back in-house. As you'll all know better than me, in their desperation to maximise their profits, the companies are using every lever at their disposal, including squeezing the workforce. Keeping workers on low pay, insecure contracts is just another way for these companies to make money. We also know that Black, Asian and ethnic minority workers are disproportionately outsourced, entrenching racism and income inequality. It's always great to see workers impacted by outsourcing getting organised and fighting back, because in doing so, you're not just fighting for yourselves, you're fighting for a better, safer service across the board. This government has started the process of renationalising train operating companies, although sadly not the rolling stock companies. And before the election, we also promised the biggest wave of insourcing for a generation, so there is an opening. But the only way this will happen is if we hold them to it. Power concedes nothing without a demand. The problems on our railways are not going to be fixed overnight, but the government needs to take actions available to them now. One thing the Tory government didn't understand was the reality that people are our biggest asset. Now, this current government talks a lot about growth in the context of our railways. We need to ensure that they act on this. And what better way of achieving that than by building an integrated workforce under the umbrella of the Great British Railways. Recruitment and retention, the accumulation of knowledge and skills, all of this could offer genuine productivity gains for the industry as a whole. So I just wanted to let you know that you have my full support and solidarity in this fight. One railway, one workforce, solidarity to you all.
So is it over to me?
Yeah.
We're waiting for some other people to join us, I believe, but I just wanted to point out, even Rachel Reeves has noted that 1/3 of public spending in Britain currently goes on outsourcing. And I believe that's one of the reasons why many of our public services don't work like they used to, because the money that goes into these outsourcing contracts are taken out of our country, they're taken out in the form of profits, and then we're left picking up the pieces. In our experience in the RMT union, over many years organising workers who've been outsourced in different types of contracts, what we found is levels of poor health and safety, levels of extremely draconian management practices. We've seen exploitation on an industrial scale. We've seen people with their wages being held in buffer accounts. We've seen people being bullied into working with chemicals that are harmful to their health. We've seen all of the bad practices that you wouldn't expect to see in the modern workplace. And many of the people who are directly responsible for this, whether they're in the train operating companies or Network Rail, they all get their rewards as investors in people. They all get their rewards at the various gala dinners for the types of employment practices they produce. But they ignore the fact that much of their workforce is outsourced and exploited and employed in very poor conditions. And a lot of our members who are outsourced don't come from here. Their families are back home, wherever back home might be. And when they find that they're sick, they can't afford to take sick leave because they end up on statutory sick pay. So they end up using their annual leave. And that means when the time comes for them to go and see their families, they can't afford the flights and trips. So it's a rip-off for the workers who find themselves in exploitative conditions. It's a rip-off for the public services that they're employed in because they get a poor service. And it's a rip-off for the country at large because money that should be going into our services are taken out of the country in the form of profits. So it's absolutely imperative that we build this campaign and get maximum support from our members. We're going to be doing a lot of work over the next period. We're going to try and engage every member of the union in this campaign. We want to see our cleaners in London Underground directly employed by London Underground. We want to see the 44,000 Sentinel card holders out there working on Network Rail's infrastructure, 9 out of 10 of whom we estimate are on a 0 hours contract. We want to see them in good employment and employed directly by Network Rail. And the same goes whether you're security, you're a gate line, whether you work in catering, wherever you are, we believe you should be employed directly by the railway that delivers the service. Over to you, President.
Thank you, Eddie. We're hoping to be joined in a moment by Kim Johnson MP, who put down an early day motion for us, and Rachel Maskell MP, but they've been called to votes in Parliament at the moment, so we're just awaiting their arrival. Might now bring in the Senior Assistant General Secretary, John Leach, just to ask John. John, do you think, as I said before, anyone joining this call now who's not sure about joining the RMT, what benefits will this campaign have in increasing our membership and adding more value to workers in the services where we represent?
Well, the benefit of being a member of the RMT starts from the moment you fill out that application form, whether or not you do it online, you do it on the telephone, or you fill out that, or you fill out a bit of paper and send it in a post box. You have the benefit of our legal services, you have the benefit of the union's resources, the fact that we can represent you on a day-to-day basis in the workplace, and that we collectively represent you as individually amongst a group of your colleagues. But what this campaign, the one that you're hearing about this evening from this online rally, is telling us is that we have a high ambition for you as well, not just on the day-to-day, day-in, day-out issues that affect everyone in the world of work, but that you should have a better job to work for, and that we've done the costing and we've looked at the research, and we've seen that, as has already been explained very, very well by the other speakers, that you are being ripped off. The travelling public is, in the sense that profits being bled out of the industry into the private shareholders' pockets of companies at the expense of people's basic wages, sick pay, pension arrangements, and so forth. So if you join our union, you can be part of a campaign that gives you protection day in, day out, as any worker needs in the world of work, but also you can be part of our campaign. And this applies right across the transport sector, wherever we have activity, be it in the four corners of this country, or even for our members, of course, in other sectors that are a little less well known about. Things like the maritime side, or even in bus and road transport, where we see outsourcing right across the economy. So RMT is the union to be in if you're in transport, and we will never cease in our determination to campaign on key issues like insourcing, which is you should all be working for the railway or for a publicly owned transport company, and day-to-day protection for you as an individual. So that's just a few reasons to be in our union.
Thank you, John. Just to the General Secretary now, can you just as we're waiting for our guest to join us, just tell me about some of the problems with outsourcing and some specifics on that, please.
Well, we've seen over the period of privatisation and outsourcing in the railways a number of significant problems. When our infrastructure maintenance outfit was privatised, we saw a number of rail disasters, including most recently, we saw after the collapse of Carillion, who had altered the drainage framework up around a bankside in Carmont up in Scotland. What happened there is the outsourced company responsible for that work had altered the infrastructure, hadn't told Network Rail. The result of that was Network Rail didn't know there'd been changes to that structure, and so it hadn't been maintained for many years. And that led to the tragic crash we saw up in Scotland. We've seen many cases of that over the years, where outsourced companies don't do the work they're supposed to do it badly, or do it in a way that doesn't maintain the safety of the railway, and then we end up paying the cost. And it's cost us an awful lot of money. We've had to bring these companies back in-house. So when we outsourced the infrastructure provider in the first instance, we've ended up with billions worth of debt having to create Network Rail. It was the same with the disaster of Metronet in London Underground. We ended up having to take on massive amount of debt to bring that back in-house. And we've seen a lot of the smaller outsourcing companies, the railway itself, the companies who outsource to these different outfits end up paying for more workers than are actually on the site, end up paying for services that don't actually get delivered, end up paying for outsourcing companies to deliver projects that aren't done properly. And ultimately it's us who end up paying the cost, either through people losing their lives, sadly, or poor services for the public, or the workers who are at the bottom of it who end up working under extremely poor conditions.
Eddie, just whilst we continue to wait for our guest, how easy do you think it would be to take for government departments and train operating companies just to do this? How could they do it, and how quickly could they do it?
Well, it's fairly simple. We know, for example, in Merseyside on Merseyrail, we know the exact cost it would take to bring all of the workers up there who are currently outsourced into direct employment, and it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. It can be done overnight. We think the same is true in London Underground. The 2,000 cleaners we've got employed on London Underground, they could be taken back in-house at the end of the contract, fairly simply. There'd be very little change. The same people currently cleaning the trains will be cleaning them the day after. They'd just be managed by London Underground. They'd have better conditions, and you would have a change of direction, because people currently who are cleaning tubes or trains or other parts of the network don't have the ability to progress in their career. You can either be a cleaner or a supervisor usually, and that's about as far as you can go. But sitting to my left here is John, who started out as a cleaner on London Underground and worked his way up through the system. And we think that's an important way to address problems where we haven't got diversity in the railway, and also to address the skills gap. We know there's going to be 50,000 railway workers retiring in the next 5 years. We desperately need a plan for the workforce going forward, and one way to bring people in and give them skills and develop them is to bring these outsourced workers in, give them a chance at a railway career where they can progress in their lives and deal with some of the problems of workforce planning at the same time.
Thank you. I think we're just getting reports of somebody who's ready to speak to us. Unfortunately, the MPs that were due to join us have been called away on parliamentary business with some votes in the House of Commons. However, we've had two guests who joined us, and the General Secretary has echoed the importance of this campaign. And if you'd like to know more about the campaign and get involved.
Yeah, awesome. So just thanks to everybody who could contribute. It's a shame we couldn't have some of the MPs who wanted to join us, but they are MPs, they are in Parliament, and they are being called to vote, so we do understand it. One of the MPs who was going to speak tonight is going to be putting down an early day motion in Parliament, which I'll be referring to. We'll be writing to all members, laying out the next steps in this campaign. We'll be asking people to get involved by using the campaign tool that we've put out online. We want you to write to your local MP, and we want you to get them to sign the early day motion that's been put down in Parliament regarding this campaign. the more signatures we get on that, the more pressure we put on the government, and they'll understand the strength of feeling that exists around this issue. There'll be other ways that members can get involved too, as we develop. As each contract comes up, and as GBR begins to be put together, we want the maximum membership involvement in putting pressure on the DfT and on Great British Railways to make sure that process includes the bringing into public ownership, not just the train operating companies and Network Rail, but also all of the contracts that sit underneath it. One other thing you can do right now is to get this campaign onto your branch's agenda. Take the campaign out into your workplace where you've got outsourced and subcontracted colleagues who aren't yet members. Ask them to join the union. You can use the recruitment materials that's on our campaign page. And I'll be writing to you again. We're going to be putting out posters and leaflets and all kinds of stuff. So make sure you pump that out and get that around your workplace. I just want to stress, we know that this campaign is not going to be something that happens overnight. We're in this for the long haul. The RMT has campaigned for 30 years to have much of our transport network brought back into public ownership. But we've won that argument, and that's now happening. And we know we're going to win on this question of outsourcing too. So we're going to keep going. We're going to fight as hard as we possibly can, and we're going to do it with the support of our rank and file members and all of the alliances we can build with politicians like Ellie and others. So get behind the campaign, end outsourcing, unity is strength.
And before we go, just final word from someone who's on the shop floor doing the work. Bella just wants to have a quick message.
Thank you, President. If you're not in the union already, you need to join now. If you're sick of being victimised, bullied, harassed, or coerced into signing documents at work through a bullying, intimidating manager, you need to join a union. You need to get involved in this campaign. We need to all stick together. And as Ezzy says, you'll have the rank and file member support and the rest of the union back in. Thank you.
On that, thank you.